debate on issues that impact our daily lives. Through our programs and activities, we offer access to dynamic political, business, and public figures from across our country and around the world, like today's guest speaker, the Honorable Maxime Bernier. Before I formally introduce Monsieur Bernier, here's a snapshot of some of our upcoming events. On Thursday, September 22nd, we bring you the third installment of our Canada 150 series. A panel of distinguished current and former CEOs will talk to us about how sustainability can drive Canada's innovation. And on Friday, September 30th, our Canada 150 series will be led by RBC's Dave Mackay in conversation with some of Canada's most respected digital entrepreneurs. To order your tickets or to learn more about the club, please visit our website at canadianclub.org. You can also join the conversation via Twitter and Instagram by following us at CDNCLUBTO or by using that hashtag. I want to thank Ernst Cliff Strategy Group for sponsoring a group of youth and young leaders from U of T's School of Public Policy and Governments to participate in today's program. Thank you for your support. And now today's guest speaker. The Honorable Maxime Bernier brings with him an education in commerce, years of financial and banking experience, and a decade in federal politics on a wide range of issues, including industry. Naturally, then, he has a lot to say on how Canada's economy can be made stronger. Monsieur Bernier was re-elected for an impressive fourth term last fall in the Quebec riding of Beauce. During his time in Parliament, he's held a number of cabinet posts, including Minister of Industry, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Minister of State for Small Business and Tourism. He's now the official opposition critic for innovation, science, and economic development. His business background includes roles at National Bank of Canada, Standard Life of Canada, the Quebec Securities Commission, and the Montreal Economic Institute. An accomplished marathoner, Monsieur Bernier has now entered the race of his life. He's one of 5 registered candidates for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. The leader will be selected in May 2017. Between now and then, though, this Quebec MP is literally racing across the country to outline his policies. We're pleased that he's with us today to detail ways that Canada can be further positioned as a top choice for investors and entrepreneurs. Maxime Bernier, bienvenue. Canadian Club of Toronto's podium is yours.
Bonjour, ça me fait grandement plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. Et puis, c'est un privilège d'être devant vous, des gens d'affaires qui créent la richesse. So I'm very, very pleased to be with you today. And I want to thank Fred for this nice introduction. And I want to also thank everyone for their interest in the Conservative Party of Canada leadership race. It has been described by some media as a big young fest. I hope everyone today is well caffeinated. So, as a professional, I'm sure that you are, like me, troubled by all the current talk about the advanced economies, like our economy, being stuck in so-called secular stagnation. Many people believe we are in a situation where economic growth is being to be chronically slow, around 1%, instead of 4% we were used to until not so long ago. And according to the private sector economists, economic growth in Canada this year will be only 1.3%. That means no new jobs for Canadians and no salary increase for Canadians. Our productivity growth is extremely slow, and over the past 15 years, multi-factor productivity growth in Canada has stood above 2% only 1 year in 2000. In those 10 years, it was below 1% and often negative. For me, there is no way we can improve our standard of living with productivity growth below 2%. Not when the number of seniors is fast increasing while the proportion of working Canadians is shrinking. Those who are working have to become more productive if we want to sustain our prosperity. And for us, we have another major problem, is that our economies seem to be trapped in a pervasive monetary situation. We've had interest rates at close to 0% for several years now. But this had no effect on growth, but however, it creates more and more distortions in the economy. Artificially low interest rates are encouraging people to borrow. We learned last week that the level of debt carried by Canadian households has reached a record level at 168% of disposable income. And we know that if interest rates were to increase now, hundreds of thousands would suddenly have trouble paying their mortgage. Artificially low interest rates are also hurting savers that are causing trouble for banks and insurance companies, which are forced to invest in riskier assets. They are creating bubbles in various sectors, which is exactly the reason why there was a crash in 2007. Everybody is now aware that this monetary situation is unsustainable. Central banks have been saying for years now that they will eventually, yes, eventually, raise interest rates. But they are afraid that doing so will provoke another major recession. So, how are we supposed to get out of this economic stagnation? The current Liberal government believes it has found the remedy. Borrow, 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 and spend, spend, spend. In short, the old Keynesian solution. And according to this view, if consumers don't spend enough, and if businesses don't invest enough, then the government should do it for them. But we cannot spend our way to prosperity with borrowed money. The head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, recently came to Canada to praise the Liberal policy. The Bank of Canada has also encouraged the government to bring more fiscal stimulus, more spending, saying there is little else it can do with monetary policy. I don't buy this solution of more borrowing and more spending. There is just one word to accurately describe Keynesianism: nonsense. The key question we have to ask ourselves is this: where does the money the government spends come from? We know that a government cannot inject resources in the economy unless it has first extracted them from citizens through taxes or put us further into debt by borrowing the money. Every time the government takes an additional dollar in taxes out of someone's pocket or borrows it from someone, that's a dollar that person won't be able to spend or to invest. Government borrowing and spending goes up, private borrowing and spending goes down, there is no wealth creation. And it is like taking a bucket of water in the deep end of a swimming pool and emptying it in the shallow end. Nothing happened. I don't believe our economy has slowed down because governments are not saving enough taxpayers' money or getting us enough into debt. More government borrowing and more government spending are not the answer to our economic challenges. And to understand why investment is down, we also have to look at the incentive businesses have to invest, or rather, the lack of incentive. Despite interest rates being exceptionally low, businesses are afraid to invest because of the uncertain economic future that they face. They see all the debt and distortion created by successive monetary and fiscal stimulus in Europe, Japan, and the United States since the Great Recession. They see governments increasing regulation and intervening more and more in the economy. More spending on the scale offered by the Liberal government is not going to stimulate the economy and bring us prosperity. It will act as a sedative for the economy. Prosperity does not come from government spending, but rather from entrepreneurs like you, investing. We need the exact opposite of more government spending. We need to encourage private investment in order to increase the economic's productive capacity. For months, I have proposed policies that will bring more competition in the telecommunications sector, in the air transportation sector, and in agriculture, as well as to cut the red tape by eliminating inter-provincial trade barriers. The more open our economy and the more competition there is, the more businesses are inclined to invest to stay competitive. Today, I offer an ambitious tax plan to unleash Canada's productive forces, boost private investment, and bring higher sustainable long-term growth. Economic growth that will allow us to lower personal taxes, better fund the government services Canadians expect, and pay down the debt. First, I propose to abolish the capital gains tax. The capital gains tax is a tax on investment. Everybody understands the logic. The more you tax something, the less of it you will get. Young entrepreneurs and innovative small businesses often have difficulty finding financial backing for their projects. Abolishing the capital gains tax will encourage everybody to save more and to invest more. It will create and it will increase also the supply and lower the cost of capital for new firms. The capital gains tax also discourages investors from selling old assets and investing in more productive new ones because the sale triggers the tax. Getting rid of it will not only bring more capital, but it will increase the overall efficiency of capital. This may sound like a radical proposal, but it is not. There was no capital gain tax in Canada until 1972. You know who was Prime Minister at that time. The Fraser Institute determined in a 2014 study that Canada's top personal capital gains tax rate is the 14th highest among the 34 OECD countries. But 11 of these countries impose no capital gains tax at all, including Switzerland, Belgium, South Korea, and the Netherlands.
Today, Ottawa collects about $3 billion from capital gains taxes every year, or about 1% of its total revenues. The benefits to our economy would vastly exceed this loss of revenues. My second proposal is to make the accelerated capital cost allowance a permanent feature of the Canadian tax system and extend it to all sectors. In 2007, as part of measures adopted to deal with the financial crisis, our Conservative government introduced accelerated capital cost allowance rates for investment in machinery and equipment used in manufacturing and processing. And in 2010, it was expanded to include clean energy equipment. The program was supposed to come to an end in 2015, but it was expanded for 10 years. We know that capital expenditures are a key driver for our productivity. Investment in new machinery and equipment produce more output per working hour. Workers become more productive, which is the key factor leading to higher wages. It also contributes to a greener economy. We can use less energy and resources to produce more. Investing in productive capacity is the best way to help both our environment and our economy. Accelerated capital cost allowance has the effects of boosting investment by allowing for a faster write-off and cost recovery. For example, instead of writing off an investment over a period of 15 years, a company can deduct it from its income in only 3 years. This directly affects the company's cash flow. The government, for sure, loses corporate tax revenues in the short term, but the increase in productivity and profitability brings more revenue in the long term. I see no reason to restrict this measure to manufacturing and clean energy procedure equipment. Investment should be encouraged for all sectors of our economy, and this should be made permanent. This will also apply to investment in the telecommunication sector, in the oil and gas, fisheries, agriculture, and any other sectors that provide value-added jobs to Canadians. Finally, to boost investment in Canada, we need to reduce the corporate income tax. This would increase the after-tax rate return on investment and encourage businesses to invest more. One of our government's major fiscal achievements was to reduce the corporate income tax from 22 to 15%. But we can do better. According to OECD data, Canada's combined federal, provincial, corporate income tax rate is the 15th highest among OECD countries. I propose to bring down the federal rate to 10%. Reducing corporate income tax does not necessarily mean that government revenues will go down. A lower tax rate attracts more foreign companies and leads to the creation of more companies in Canada. More companies will become more profitable, invest more, employ more people, and pay more taxes. Still, these three measures do imply that government revenues will go down at least temporarily. And as you know, I'm against the deficit and I'm against increasing personal taxes. So there is only one way to recoup the revenue loss: to put business subsidies on the chopping block. The federal government is spending billions of dollars every year to help businesses. It directly puts money in new investment, bails out failing companies, and offers dozens of different incentives, tax credit, and tax deduction for all kinds of reasons. A recent study by the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary
found 16 billion in various types of direct and indirect subsidies to businesses. Some measures may be worth keeping, but most are inefficient ways for the government to choose winners, bail out unprofitable ventures, promote some bureaucratic fad, and buy political support with taxpayers' money. They also create unfair distortion in the economy by favoring some sectors at the expense of others. Abolishing them will force companies to compete for funds in the capital market instead of wasting resources filling in questionnaires and lobbying the government. I think axing inefficient subsidies programs is not just good for the economy. It is also crucial to demonstrate to Canadians that pro-growth measures such as tax cuts are not the same as pro-business measures. The ultimate aim of pro-growth measures is to benefit Canadian consumers and workers, not businesses. By putting an end to crony capitalism and corporate welfare, I believe it will actually be easier to convince Canadians to our pro-growth policies. It is time to stop taking billions of dollars out of the private sector only to redistribute in an inefficient way through subsidies. A rational economic policy, and also a fair one, will instead lower taxes for all businesses. And as you know, this is an ambitious plan. But it will end corporate welfare and bring a real and sustainable stimulus to our economy. It will turn Canada into a haven for investors and entrepreneurs. It will encourage private investment, increase productivity, create jobs, and lead to higher wages for Canadians. And it will achieve this in a responsible way without burdening future generations. Thank you. Merci.
I want to thank you for delivering such a strong message on the many opportunities available to strengthen Canada's fiscal health. Your business experience and federal ministerial roles have provided a unique perspective to our audience today. We agree that our country holds tremendous potential for growth in a number of key areas. Your plan to drive Canada's prosperity is indeed bold and ambitious. Thank you for sharing your views with us this afternoon. Bonne chance in the Conservative Party leadership race. We look forward to the outcome in May, and thank you again. This concludes our program today. We're grateful to mediaevents.ca, Canada's online event space, and BBC for live streaming today's event. To learn more about the club, please visit us at canadianclub.org. Thanks very much for joining us. Have a great afternoon.